All right, welcome back to Yahoo Finance Live on this Monday morning. But an interesting couple of months for the crypto space. We saw Bitcoin's rally last weekend, and now we see the price of the cryptocurrency sitting closer to 40,000 here after having traded down towards 30,000 during most of the month of July. And joining us now to talk about the state of institutional adoption within the crypto space and sort of where the bull cycle is headed from here, we're joined by Raghu Yarlagadda, the CEO at FalconX. Raghu, thanks so much for jumping on this morning. Let's just start with how you think about crypto as an institutional asset, especially, we were just talking to an analyst about Square. We see Coinbase will be out with its results on the back of a couple of major public companies, MicroStrategy, so on and so forth, incorporating Bitcoin into where they sit. How does that change things for you guys on your part of the business?
Absolutely. First off, great to be here, Myles and Brian. So in terms of institutional adoption, just to give you a little bit of context on the timeline, May 2020 is when we saw the flurry of US institutions coming into crypto, primarily around the narrative of Bitcoin being a good inflationary hedge. As that happened, around November is when the diversification happened to Asia and Europe. And around the January timeframe, corporate treasuries, we began seeing a lot of corporate treasuries coming in. And the core use case and the core narrative is what started as an inflationary hedge, diversified into stablecoins. And now there's a lot of focus around yield generation, especially around this macro regime of world printing a lot of money. So to answer your question specifically, institutional demand over the last 1 month, is cautiously optimistic. They are definitely concerned about where or what is going to happen next, especially on the regulatory front. But that being said, the news cycle around Amazon, the news cycle around yield generation through different vehicles within crypto, that is definitely drawing a lot of attention. Specifically from FalconX, we haven't seen a drop in institutional customers coming in. We're seeing a very healthy inflow of traditional institutions coming up and signing up to trade crypto.
Raghu, when you say you have the institutions coming in and trading crypto right now, how would you define an institution? Is that a hedge fund?
Oh, that's a great question. So we're seeing a very diverse set of personas, Brian, all the way from some of the world's largest hedge funds, crypto native funds, retail aggregators, neobanks, and commercial banks. Right now, most of the activity is around the hedge funds and the prop shops.
Raghu, I'm curious what you make of the stablecoin market now and what role that is playing. Because I think covering U.S. financial markets, basically equities, I see these stablecoin headlines. I don't worry too much about them. But from your vantage point operating an exchange in this space, how does Tether fit into creating a stable and really trusted crypto institutional market at this point?
Absolutely. A lot of U.S. traditional institutions who are coming into the space, we haven't seen a ton of their activity in Tether. They've been focused on USDC, the Circle stablecoin. Some U.S. institutions and also quite a few of Asian institutions, they definitely do have exposure to Tether. But Myles, I think the important point to note is while everyone is watching what's happening with Tether on the regulatory front, a lot of the exposure to Tether is very transactional or temporal. As the news cycle about Tether came in about 2, 3, 4 weeks back, a lot of institutions moved to USDC. And some institutions came back again into Tether. So to answer your question, definitely Tether has a sizable role to play in the crypto macro ecosystem. There's no question about it. But because of the transactional nature, I think crypto as an ecosystem is a lot more robust, around the news cycles concerning Tether.
And then also on the yield side, certainly big news that we saw last week out of FTX, and there's been a lot of conversation around just DeFi platforms and yield farming, all of these kinds of ideas. And has that generated questions, concerns, interests from your vantage point? And how do you see that sort of right sizing? I mean, you get 0% lending basically in the US dollar market. How much longer till we see spreads compress, from the crypto side?
Oh, that's a fascinating question, Myles. There's a lot of conversations around yield generation through decentralized finance. Specifically, the US traditional institutions, I mean, in the regime of commercial banks paying anywhere from 40 to 80 basis points of interest rate, on the DeFi side, they're seeing about 4%. And building on the DeFi momentum, Coinbase and Circle offered institutional treasury products that generate about 4% interest rate on an annualized basis. So that stoked a lot of interest from the US institutions specifically. Now, as they come in, they want to understand the underlying mechanics. I mean, how are we generating 4% yield? Part of it is through the trading activity. Bitcoin volatility generates a lot of demand for US dollar for momentum traders to basically borrow. That is one source of yield generation. The second source of yield generation, which you're referring to, is around the decentralized finance through protocols like Compound and Aave. So right now, institutions are watching it very closely. They have a lot of questions, right? I mean, what's the soundness of the protocol? They're getting comfortable. We see a lot of institutions touching Compound through intermediaries like us. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that they are completely fully on board on the decentralized finance side because they're waiting for clarity on the regulatory side of things, Myles.
And Raghu, I'm interested in your firm. Last numbers that I saw, you raised $50 million in March, valued the company at $675 million. Are you back in the market trying to raise more capital? Do you want to IPO sometime this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of demand, coming from more traditional venture capitalists, hedge funds who are looking into the crypto space and the broader tokenization narrative, and also crossover funds, Brian. So there's a lot of inbound, and we're having conversations like any good firm that's growing incredibly fast. But at the same time, no announcement to make at the moment. Stay tuned. We're excited to be talking about that.
A masterful way, having conversations. Love that, Raghu. We're all having conversations all the time, of course, right? About all sorts of things. I appreciate the time this morning. Raghu Yarlagadda, CEO of FalconX. Raghu, I'm sure we'll have you back. Thanks for jumping on.